Illicit opioid heroin poisonings increased by 12.4% from 1999 to 2002. The number of prescription opioid poisonings in the United States increased by 91.2% during the same period. When taking a look at these figures, there is no denying the United States has an opioid problem, but there has been an effort to decrease the number of addicts and to get them help. We will take a look at the history of methadone clinics and how they began, explore what methadone really is, and go over what is required of the patient to enter a clinic. I personally am not an addict and have never been to a methadone clinic. However, I have lost a few friends to overdoses, and I can only think that maybe a methadone clinic could have been their answer to getting them help and to helping them overcome their addiction. These past few years, we know that opioid and heroin addiction is on the rise, and methadone clinics are starting to pop up close to home. But where did it all begin? Let's explore how methadone clinics started and why they were needed. After World War II, the rise of heroin addicts was becoming an epidemic. The death rate of those who were injecting heroin increased drastically from 7.2 deaths per 10,000. The number grew to 35.8 deaths per 10,000. The causes of death ranged from overdoses to diseases that addicts would contract when they would share their drugs with other addicts. When under the influence of drugs, you are not thinking in your right mind. Therefore, the addict is willing to sacrifice their life in order to get their next high. The spread of disease from heroin addicts sharing needles became a major problem in New York City. The citizens realized something needed to be done to stop the disease from spreading and lower the number of addicts in the city. Researchers at the Rockefeller Foundation developed a system of dosing heroin with methadone to prevent their use of heroin. I think methadone is a very helpful medication because an opioid addict cannot quit cold turkey. The withdrawal symptoms are far too severe and it could potentially kill them if they tried. So by using methadone as a treatment, they are able to continue with their life. They were able to establish multiple methadone treatment facilities in New York, and the patients showed tremendous improvement. The addicts were able to stop using the drugs, stop committing crimes in order to get their drugs, and once again become an active member of society. Thousands of treatment facilities began to be established through the United States in a domino effect. Not only are methadone treatments helping the addicts, they are also helping the citizens of the cities they are in and also helping the families of the addicts. Being close to an addict can affect one tremendously because they may constantly feel guilty, blaming themselves for their loved one's problems, and are much more likely to give them money and just feed into their habit instead of cutting them off. Also, being an addict can relate to committing crimes because they may need to score money to be able to get their drugs, so they may rob people, rob stores, do whatever they can to be able to obtain their drugs. Now that we know how methadone clinics began, let's take a look at what methadone and Suboxone actually is and how they work. There are two main types of drugs given to patients with an opioid addiction. The first drug is methadone and the second is Suboxone. Methadone works best for those who have had a long history of addiction because the chemicals are much more potent. Suboxone works for those who have not been addicted for a long period of time, probably under 5 years. However, a patient can start treatment using methadone, and once they have shown improvement, they can be moved to Suboxone. Being able to switch to a less potent drug is very helpful because the addict could have a tendency or be tempted to abuse the methadone as well, which is why methadone is closely monitored. Suboxone is the first medication approved by the FDA to treat opioid addiction. Suboxone, unlike methadone, can be prescribed by a doctor. Suboxone helps opioid addicts in the following ways. 1. Reduces opioid use. 2. Blocks the effects of other opioids. 3. Helps reduce the cravings for the opioids. And 4. Stops the symptoms of withdrawal. Suboxone is a partial opioid agonist that produces less effect than the full effect of an opioid when it binds to opioid receptors in the brain. When the receptors are stimulated, they cause different chemicals to activate in areas that cause euphoria. Methadone works in the same way, it's just more potent to help long-term users. The drugs give almost the same effect an opioid has on your body without actually experiencing the initial high. Therefore, the addict is able to get a job, continue with daily activities without crashing or experiencing any type of withdrawal. Now that we have an understanding of the drugs patients are given under treatment, let's take a look at a few things that are required of the patients to continue their treatment. Just like any treatment facility one may attend, there are specific rules and regulations to follow in order to continue treatment. Let's go over what is required of a methadone clinic patient. When attending a methadone clinic, you must submit to renal monthly urinalysis to make sure that you have not continued to use the drugs and also to make sure you are not abusing the medications that they are currently giving you. This process is needed because the cost of methadone treatment is very expensive, so if one is not ready to get the help they need, they cannot be bypassed to abuse the program because there is a line of people waiting who actually want to get help and will not abuse the program. Also, when attending a methadone clinic, the patients are required to participate in group and individual counseling. These sessions are focused on allowing the client to work through their treatment goals. While in counseling, the patient will create a treatment plan, which is a set of steps they wish to accomplish or follow in order to better themselves. Also, insurance will not cover the cost required to attend a methadone clinic. You must pay a fee at every visit, and it could cost anywhere near $100. The reason behind this is because insurance companies do not want to give money away to a program that could potentially be a failure, such as a patient could come into the treatment facility and stay for a few weeks and then decide that they no longer want to attend. Therefore, the insurance company loses out on that money and nobody got any help. However, in some states, financial assistance may be provided, depending on your area. Now I have covered the basic information about methadone clinics. We looked at the history of methadone clinics and how they began. We discovered the drugs given to the patients in the clinics, which were Suboxone and methadone. And lastly, we discussed a few steps that are required to keep the patient in the program. I hope you found this information useful and pass it on. You may just save a life. Thank you.